Now, this is the story about a man who had one daughter. That's all the family he had in the world. He worked as a woodcutter. They lived very, very simply. One day, the daughter asked him to bring home a head of cabbage for her to cook for their supper. They were very poor, but the man always tried to please his daughter. When he came home that evening, he brought a big head of cabbage. And he told her, "This is too much for one supper. Cut this in half. We can get 2 meals from this head of cabbage." So she carried the cabbage head into the kitchen. With a knife, she cut it in half. And in the very heart of the cabbage head, she saw a tiny little snake. It was shiny and black with a little round head, not much bigger than a worm. She called for her father to bring her a jar to put the snake in. When her father saw the snake, he told her, "Ese animal te va a lastimar. Vale más que lo mates." "That animal is going to hurt you," he said. "You had better kill it." She said, "Papá, ¿cómo lo he de matar? Va a ser mi mejor amigo." "How could I kill it?" she said. "It's going to be my best friend." So her father brought her a jar and she put the snake in it. Every day she would feed the snake, and it grew so fast that in just 1 week she had to ask her father for a larger container. And once again he told her, "Ese animal te va a lastimar, vale más que lo mates." That animal's going to hurt you. You had better kill it. "Papá, ¿cómo lo he de matar? Va a ser mi mejor amigo. It's going to be my best friend." So he brought her a larger jar. Every week she had to ask for a bigger and bigger container. Finally, she had to ask her father for a barrel to put the snake in. And for the last time he told her, "Ese animal te va a lastimar, vale más que lo mates." She said, "Papá, ¿cómo lo he de matar? Es mi mejor amigo." "How can I kill it? It's my best friend." Her father brought her a great round barrel, and she put the snake in it. Every day she would take the snake out and talk to it. And the snake told her wonderful things. It told her that every time she cried, rain fell from the sky. Every time she laughed, pale flowers grew, blue and white and pink flowers. Every time she sang, bright colored flowers would grow, red, orange, and yellow flowers. The time she spent talking to the snake was the happiest part of her day. But one day when she returned the snake to the barrel, she saw that it was too large for even such a big container. And the snake told her that it was going to have to leave her. She wanted to go too, but the snake said it wasn't possible. She begged and she pleaded. Finally, the snake said, "This is the best I can do. Rastréame en la mañana. Follow my trail in the morning. When you come to the place where it disappears, pide una merced. Make a wish, and it will be given to you." In the morning, she ran to the window and she saw the trail leading away from her house. She followed that trail, and it took her into lands she had never even heard of before. And then the trail led out onto a dry, empty desert. It began to grow more and more faint until it disappeared. She looked around her. She had never seen such a desolate land before. There were no green plants growing in that country. She thought about her father's house with green, shady trees around it, and a tear came to her eye. And then, from the clear blue sky above her, rain started falling. It was just as the snake had said it would be. That thought made her laugh. Pale flowers started growing all around her, blue flowers and pink and white flowers. A song sprang from her lips, and bright colored flowers grew around her. She said, "Ay, si yo tuviera una casita en que vivir aquí mismo. I wish I had a little house to live in right here." And when she looked behind her, there was a snug little house. She moved into that house. Every time she was happy and she laughed or she sang, flowers grew around the house. Every time she would think about her father and she would start to cry, rain fell to feed the flowers. Before long, the house was in the center of a beautiful garden of flowers and fruit trees. But the land outside that garden was dry and dying. Nothing would grow in that land. Not even the king of that land could make a green plant appear in his fields. And that king had a flock of sheep. They had once been healthy, but now they were so thin and weak, he was afraid they might all die. And so one day he told his shepherd, "Take my sheep to the faraway mountains. There might still be grass growing up in the mountains." The shepherd drove the sheep away from the king's palace and off toward the mountains, but he had only gone a third of the way to the mountains when he saw a pretty little house in the center of a lush garden. He tried to keep the sheep from running to the garden and eating the plants, but he couldn't do it, and he was afraid whoever lived in that house was going to be angry. But the girl came outside and she smiled as she watched the sheep eating greedily. And then at the end of the day, she even gave the shepherd a basket of fruit to take home with him. When the king saw the basket of fruit, he was amazed. And he was even more amazed when he heard about the girl who lived in the house in the center of the fertile garden. He said, "I must meet this girl." And he told his shepherd to go back the next day and invite the girl to join him for dinner. But when the girl received the invitation, she said to the shepherd, "If the king would like me to join him for dinner, tell him to come himself and invite me." So the next day the king rode to the girl's house. He invited her to join him, and they rode back together to his palace. As they were eating their dinner, the king asked the girl to tell him the story of her life. As her story unfolded, a strange look came over the king's face. Finally, he said, "Wait, I must show you something." He ran from the room, and when he came back, he was carrying a long black snake skin. He told her that many years earlier, he had been hunting in the mountains, and he had wandered into the garden of an evil magician. He had tasted a leaf from a head of cabbage in that garden, and he had fallen under a spell. He said, "I don't remember anything that happened for what must have been a very long time. I have only the faintest memory that a kind, good person cared for me. And then one morning I awoke in the desert, not far from where your house is standing. And this snakeskin was beside me. And the girl said, "Oh, then you must be my best friend." And it was true. And it wasn't very long before he was her husband as well. They left his palace with the dead fields around it and moved into her house in the center of the beautiful garden. But the girl always wondered what had become of her father. So one day she traveled back to her old home. She found her father looking very old and very sad from many years of wondering what had become of his beloved daughter. When he saw her again, finally, the old man could die in peace. And then the girl returned with her husband to live in the house in the center of the garden. Whenever they were happy and they sang together or they laughed, then the garden would get bigger and bigger. And every time the girl thought about her father and a tear would come to her eye, rain would fall. That made the garden grow greener and greener.